Good morning. Welcome to this Women in Business webinar brought to you by Ixonia Bank. My name is Wendy Sowinski. I am a Senior Vice President and Commercial Banker at Ixonia Bank, where I lead our SBA lending and treasury management programs. At Ixonia Bank, our Women in Business program is focused on supporting and empowering women in all aspects of business, both personally and professionally. While we all continue to deal with the impacts of COVID-19, we want to make sure that we maintain our focus on providing you with valuable content and topics that help you in your professional journey. At Ixonia Bank, our mission is to provide unmatched value and service to our business and consumer clients. We are proud to be independently and locally owned with 7 locations throughout Southeast Wisconsin. Our newest location is located in downtown Milwaukee at 611 East Wisconsin Avenue, where we have a talented team of professionals and encourage you to stop by. Our guest for today's webinar is Suzanne Kelley, President and CEO of the Waukesha County Business Alliance. Suzanne has been involved at the Alliance since 2009. Prior to that, she enjoyed a 23-year career in government relations for General Electric Company. As the Regional Manager of Corporate Governance, Government Relations, Suzanne managed GE's legislative and public affairs activities for a 12-state region and represented the company on a broad range of issues before state and local government. For the first portion of our webinar, Suzanne is going to give us an update on the present state of business in Waukesha County. And then afterwards, I will have an opportunity to chat with her about her professional journey, and we will allow time for Q&A. Please use the chat feature to submit any questions for Suzanne, and we ask that you keep your cameras and microphones off for the duration of the presentation. And with that, I will turn it over to Suzanne.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you for that kind introduction. And it's such a pleasure to be here as part of this Women in Business series. Thank you to Ixonia Bank, really, for shining the light on women in business. The Waukesha County Business Alliance is a regional chamber of commerce with 1,200 member companies. And as a chamber leader, I have the enormous pleasure of working with many smart, impactful women at all our member companies. And it's truly an exciting time for women in business. Just this month, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce announced its first female CEO in its 109-year history. Suzanne Clark, another Suzanne, will be taking the helm of that organization, which is really the largest and most powerful business advocacy group in our country. I think a woman leading it is a real game changer. Because I've spent a good portion of my career in government relations, I see great opportunity for more women to get involved in advocacy and public policy. I think it's hugely important for women and men to get it more involved in the political process. And I'll touch on that a bit more later. But first, I have been asked to provide some perspective on Waukesha County's business community. Now, chambers of commerce really exist to preserve, protect, and promote the business community. That means we are great at providing wonderful professional development and networking opportunities. And we focus on things like tax issues, the regulatory climate, infrastructure investments, and workforce. Public health issues, not so much in our wheelhouse. A global pandemic, well, that was actually something for the movies, not the real world. So, speaking of the real world, of course, COVID-19 came on the scene with a vengeance back in mid-March, and we all know what happened next. Social distancing, limits on gatherings, a safer at home order, essential versus non-essential worker definitions, face masks, hand sanitizers, complicated stimulus packages coming at us fast and furiously. It went on and on and on. And it was a really scary and confusing time, especially in those first few weeks and months. But looking back now, what was truly remarkable was how business responded. Almost overnight, businesses transitioned to a remote workforce. Businesses that were deemed essential implemented new safety protocols and figured out how to stay open. Waukesha County Executive Paul Farrow, he launched a Stay Safe to Stay Open campaign, which the Alliance adopted and promoted with our members. Virtual learning became the norm. Employees who were now working from home were also suddenly expected to be teachers, helping their kids with remote learning. And businesses, well, they responded with a newfound flexibility. So with all of that as a backdrop, what is the current state of Waukesha County's business community today? You know, as a disclaimer, I am not an economist, but the Business Alliance works with many, many businesses. So I'll give you my best assessment of what we are seeing and hearing on the streets. First, a slide to set the table. Waukesha County is the third largest county in the state. We're over 500 square miles in size and have 37 municipalities, so lots of local government. Waukesha County has over 12,000 employers and over 245,000 employees. So our county is a true economic engine. Waukesha County has long been known as a fiscally responsible county. Our government leaders are very focused on and very proud of the county's AAA bond rating. So with all of that, the bottom line is Waukesha County is really well positioned for a strong rebound as we start to emerge from this pandemic. One of the reasons Waukesha County has weathered the COVID-19 crisis as well as it has is that manufacturing is such a strong part of our economy. Waukesha County is the biggest manufacturing county in the state, and within a 50-mile radius of Waukesha County, we have the largest manufacturing hub in the entire nation. Manufacturers very quickly were deemed essential early on and figured out how to operate safely. For example, Sussex IM, which it makes every Purell dispenser in the United States out of its operations in Sussex, never shut down. We have manufacturers who have continued to invest in Waukesha County and have moved forward with expansion projects, such as Milwaukee Tool and Leonardo DRS in Menominee Falls, and Eaton in Waukesha. Of course, not every manufacturer is thriving. It's a bit of a mixed picture. Those connected with mining, oil, and gas, which were already hard hit before the pandemic, are still struggling. And of course, the airline and automotive industry and their suppliers also are having a tough time. However, other businesses have really rebounded fairly well. Those that are recovering and in some cases are thriving are construction, healthcare, insurance, business and financial services, to name a few. Commercial real estate, specifically industrial real estate stock, is doing surprisingly well in Waukesha County, with an average vacancy rate of just 2% in Waukesha County compared to 4.7% in the broader region. Unfortunately, like other places in the nation, some businesses were very, very hard hit. Small in-store retailers, for example, those that couldn't easily transition to online sales, are having a tough time. And then the entertainment, hospitality, and restaurant industries are really struggling. Over 100,000 restaurants across the United States have already closed permanently, and the Wisconsin Restaurant Association estimates that another 37% of restaurants in our state are likely to close within the next 6 months without significant financial assistance. However, all in all, despite that somewhat mixed picture, I am very optimistic about a continuing recovery in 2021. And some are saying that the second half of this year could really be robust. Either way, we have a lot of assets in Waukesha County that give us a competitive advantage. So what are some of the things we have going for us? For one, business and government work very well together in Waukesha County, which is not the case in all counties. From the beginning, the business community has been a partner in the county's response to the pandemic, and the Business Alliance has worked hand in hand with the county on COVID-related webinars and to provide other information to help our employers navigate the current circumstances. But our collaboration with the county is really nothing new. We have a history of collaborating. Several years ago, we worked with the county and other stakeholders to create a new economic development organization, the Waukesha County Center for Growth. That center has been a huge asset throughout this COVID crisis, providing small businesses with counseling, no-cost counseling, helping them access financial assistance like EIDL and PPP loans and other kinds of business planning. So that has been a real win for our county. And I just want to give a quick shout out. They have a new female executive director in Judy Taylor. So another great woman in our county. Other assets, we have great educational resources. Our K-12 schools are among the best in the nation. And our schools have worked very hard to reopen and stay open safely. Now, in-person learning is a big priority, not only for schools and students and parents, but for employers as well. We have world-class technical education with WCTC, and we also have many other higher education institutions like Carroll University, which is the state's first and oldest private college, and it's celebrating its 175th anniversary this year. And the business community really has been working closely with educators to better position graduates to meet the skills needed at our Waukesha County companies, whether that be welding and CNC operation or engineering and business analytics. Our employers are engaged in building strong business education partnerships. Also, our healthcare. We have a very high healthcare quality here. We're a national leader, and I think if we've learned nothing else over the last year, it's how vital healthcare is. And then our stable Midwest location should be another big asset as people are leaving the coast to escape natural disasters like hurricanes and earthquakes and wildfires. We have an abundance of fresh water. We are in close proximity to both national and international airports, which will be great when we all feel comfortable flying again. And I think we all know that we just have a wonderful quality of life here. So many of us have rediscovered the natural beauty of Waukesha County over the last year with our lakes and our parks and our hiking and biking trails, our golf courses, and so on. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but we live in a little slice of paradise here. But there's always more that we can do to position ourselves for a strong rebound. So what do we have to work on? For one thing, our roads and highways need to be modernized, but funding that modernization is an ongoing challenge. We need to connect job seekers who are in Milwaukee County with all the open positions that we have here in Waukesha County. And because of our widespread geography, busing is often not cost effective. So we need to find innovative transportation solutions to connect workers to jobs. And the Business Alliance is currently working with SewerPAC on a pilot project in Menominee Falls to see if we can use services like Uber and Lyft to connect people from the end of a bus route with open positions further west. Workforce, we continue to have a big workforce shortage. This is nothing new. And you'd think with a pandemic that we'd have more available workers, but finding skilled workers is still a major challenge for our employers. The state's chamber, WMC, recently did a CEO survey, which found that workforce is again the #1 issue facing employers, supplanting COVID-19. And demographics, let's be honest, are not in our favor. We're an aging county. So we need to work hard to attract talent and young families. And one way to do that is to have more affordable housing, especially affordable housing for our essential workers like teachers, nurses, first responders, and production workers. We want these individuals not only to work in Waukesha County, but also to live here. We should all want Waukesha County to be a welcoming and inclusive place where honest and hardworking people see opportunity and want to settle. That's exactly what it was for my parents 70 years ago. If you'll indulge me in a bit of family history, my mom and dad came here as German immigrants in the early 1950s on the heels of my grandmother, Hildegard. And you can see Hildegard on the picture on the far left. She's in the middle, in her heels, standing between my mom and dad. My parents, they started a business in the basement of our home in Brookfield, and through really hard work, they were able to save and expand, and they built a warehouse and a showroom in the New Berlin Industrial Park. And there's a picture in the middle there of the groundbreaking. You'll see me in my little white ankle socks, again with my grandmother and my father, and my mother must have been taking that picture. She must be behind the camera. So that business, Oscar Heiss Imports, supported our family. It created jobs to support other families, and it allowed me to it paid for my college education, and it has allowed my mother to this day to live independently at the ripe young age of 93. So really my family background taught me that business is a force for good. I saw the many jobs that my dad's business created for other families and helped support them. And now seeing how business has responded to the pandemic only reinforced that belief. I mean, it really was business that early on kept our lights on and food on our tables and kept our economy on life support. It was businesses that pivoted and pivoted to the production of ventilators and much needed PPP in those early days. And it's businesses that led the development and the production of vaccines, which will hopefully bring us out of this pandemic, in the not too distant future. Unfortunately, there were a lot of businesses that got sucker punched, especially small businesses. That's why I believe it's more important than ever for us to work with government to create policies where job creators can thrive. The Alliance's goal is very simple. We want to make Waukesha County the best place to do business. And our team is really proud to be a strong advocate and voice for the business community. But our strength really comes from our member businesses. It's when they engage that policymakers really pay attention. So the message that I'd like to leave with you today is that Waukesha County is well positioned for recovery. But now it's more important than ever to get involved in educating our elected officials on how their public policies are affecting our companies. We need to encourage, not discourage, business growth. I have never been more confident and optimistic about the resiliency, the creativity, and innovation of our Waukesha County businesses and their workforce. But COVID-19 did hit women especially hard. One study found that 4 times as many women as men left the workforce back in September. That's 865,000 women compared to 216 men. And we women have a vested interest in making our voices heard and ensuring that the strides made in the workplace over many, many decades aren't erased in 1 year by this pandemic. I'd like to close by saying how grateful I am to Ixonia Bank. Thank you for investing and helping women in business and in their personal pursuits. You have been a wonderful partner with the Business Alliance. Our 2 organizations actually share an anniversary dating back to our origins in 1918. So I'm very proud that Ixonia Bank and the Business Alliance have been supporting business for more than a century. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you. And I'm happy to take some questions.
All right. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Suzanne. That was very informative. I think that we could spend the entire afternoon talking more about the many good things happening in Waukesha County and Southeast Wisconsin, but I know that our viewers are also interested in hearing more about your personal journey that really ties into your passion for supporting our community. So on behalf of everyone, I thank you for that. And, I guess with that, just kind of getting into it. So can you tell us a little bit more about your personal professional journey that led to your position that you hold today at the Waukesha County Business Alliance?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And, this is a bit of a role reversal for me because at the Alliance, I'm usually the one that's introducing our speakers and doing the questioning. So this is a fun change of pace for me. My professional journey really began with my studies at the University of Florida in Gainesville a long time ago. I entered journalism because, quite frankly, math and science weren't a great strength for me. And I really leaned toward creative writing and English. And it was my father who kept putting Time magazines in front of me and saying, maybe you should consider going into journalism. So I enrolled in the J School in Florida, and it was in my senior year that I got an internship, surprisingly, with their College of Engineering Studies. So we had a team that wrote news articles on some of the research that was happening at the engineering college. And it was run by this retired journalist. He was our managing editor, and he really ran a tight ship, but he taught me so much. He taught me the importance of concise sentences and the importance of communication. And most importantly, he believed in me and he believed in all of our team. So because he believed in us, we believed in ourselves. And that really allowed me to, feel a little more confident in launching my career. After I graduated, I came back to Wisconsin, which is my home state. I'm born and raised in Waukesha County, and I ended up getting a position with a small community newspaper called the Lake Country Reporter based in Heartland, Wisconsin. And I was there for 5 years, starting as a reporter. And when I left, I was editor. And again, it was a great learning experience. In a small paper, we had to do everything from, covering school board meetings and plan commission meetings and town board meetings, which is probably where I actually first had my first inkling of the importance of government, to taking pictures and laying out the paper. So again, a great development opportunity. And it was through my time at the Reporter that I made a contact at GE, what was then called GE Medical Systems. A gentleman was my key contact there. He would send me press releases every once in a while on things that were happening at GE, and we'd run them in the paper. And I heard he was leaving that role. And at the time, after 5 years at a small paper that was family owned, wasn't sure there was much further for me to go. I thought, time for me to try something new. So I called him up and said, hey, I'd like to apply for the job that you're leaving. And he said, well, unfortunately, it has already been filled by somebody internally, but he was looking for somebody who could write and do research. He was opening a corporate government relations office for GE. So I joined him doing that. And again, somebody who taught me so much, showed me the ropes. Looking back, lobbying and government relations wasn't anything that I ever thought about it as a profession. I kind of fell into it, fortunately. And I was at GE for 23 years. We covered the Midwest, so worked with a lot of governor's offices, state legislators, had a team of contract lobbyists in some of those states. And it was also at that time where I had another mentor at GE who had been serving on the Waukesha County Chamber Board of Directors. the chamber was really our predecessor. And he was rolling off the board and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Oh, I think you should get involved in this board of directors." And honestly, at the time, I knew there were chambers of commerce. I wasn't quite sure what they did. And I said to him, "I don't think this is such a great fit for me. My job is across the country. I don't know why I should get involved in this local group." But he was a convincing guy. So I joined the chamber board, and it was, again, a wonderful learning experience. And I met so many people within the community and learned the important role that chambers really play in the economic growth of an area. So, it's funny that over the years, when I was at GE, I had, in the back of my mind, I always had this little thing niggling saying, what would you do if you weren't at GE? And one of the things that I thought about was, boy, it would be fun to have this kind of a role, but at a chamber of commerce representing all the businesses in my community, not just one business. So I was in Kentucky on business for GE, speaking to my husband one evening, and he mentioned that he read in the paper that the head of the Waukesha County Chamber was retiring. And it was as if a light bulb went off in my head. And after 23 years at GE, I threw my hat in the ring at the Waukesha County Chamber. And so here I am. Wow. And I think along the way, I've just been lucky to have great mentors. I didn't think of them as mentors. That wasn't a term that was really that common when I started out. They were just great bosses who were willing to teach me. And so they gave me responsibilities I didn't even know I was ready for. And you learn a lot from that.
Right. And I think a lot of it has to do with the planning that you really can't plan for. It's those experiences that really lead you to those opportunities, and maybe finding that encouragement along the way. We'll call them, from mentors now. That's really what led you to know that there was maybe a greater purpose, and, your experience, you could serve a broader range of business.
Exactly.
So thank you for taking that leap of faith. So I guess, I feel like we covered this a little bit here, but, as far as the transition then from working in an environment, a large corporation like GE, to running the Alliance. Is there a little more you could share about maybe what did that transition look like?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And it's one that I've often been asked. And quite honestly, it was not that difficult because I worked on the GE corporate team. So we represented every GE business, and there were from jet engines and medical equipment to financial services, lighting, appliances, NBC Universal at the time. So a lot of different kinds of businesses. And so I was used to different kinds of issues that affected those businesses. At the Alliance, we have 1,200 companies. So, very diverse membership base, everything from financial services and manufacturing to construction and to transportation. So again, in that way, things were really kind of similar in the types of businesses that I was used to serving. But another question I'm often asked is, do I miss the resources at GE? And it's interesting because in corporate America, you are always under cost constraints. So yes, they're resource rich, but when you're, in the ranks, you're always, being very careful about spending. And of course we traveled, and that was really part of the job. But I think the biggest difference is that without all the layers in a smaller organization at the Business Alliance, you really can make decisions much more quickly and you see the results of your work, again, almost immediately. So I think that would be the biggest difference for me.
Right. And it's interesting too, because I think that also showcases some of what we experience even beyond Ixonia and Waukesha County Business Alliance having some synergies, because I find too that we're working, especially on the commercial end, with so many diverse industries.
Yes, you are.
And understanding the impacts that all of these things, everything from COVID to energy to transportation to the skills gap, we really need to have a good understanding and advocate for our clients too, for change. So it's amazing how.
So a lot of similarities
Yes,
between our
yes,
customer
yes.
base, for sure. That's why we love to partner with you.
Yes, I love it. So I guess too, I guess what other changes have you seen since you assumed this leadership role?
Yeah, well, there's been, over the last 11 years that I've been at the Business Alliance, it's been a time of growth and evolution. So we really have aligned our programs to, and all of our services and our offerings to meet the needs of workforce. So, and meet the needs of employers, right? A lot of that has focused on workforce issues in recent years. We are much more engaged in advocacy. That's been a tremendous growth area for us now more than ever during this time of COVID. And, we work hard to align with other regional partners because we know that, in Waukesha County, we're affected by everything that's happening in our region and our state. And so, we need to collaborate with a lot of different stakeholders to get things done.
Yes, and I guess too, I would guess that there's people in our audience that are kind of wondering, with everything that you've had to deal with, just how have you managed personally then? Because there's had to have been topics and issues that you faced that as the leader of this organization, you're the one out in front advocating for change. But have there been, I would imagine, instances that kind of challenged maybe your skill set or your belief system? Like how personally have you dealt with that?
Well, skill set and belief system are two different things, really. If something is outside of my skill set, I think there are a couple of things you can do. You can work very hard to acquire the skills you need, develop those, study more, or you can find the right talent. And we do a lot of that at the Business Alliance. We have a great, talented team who have the skills. So that's, so I'm very lucky at the Business Alliance. In terms of belief system, now I think it's really, really important to try to listen and understand someone else's perspective. I think you should really be able to have a constructive dialogue, a respectful dialogue. You might not always agree at the end of the day, but it's very healthy to hear different points of view. And it's also, it's okay to compromise. And that is something you learn in the lobbying world, is that compromise is necessary if you want to get to solutions.
Yes, I think that is actually a very key point. So hopefully we see more of that happening in our world as we work through some of the impacts of, COVID and just overall changes. I guess too, more along the personal lines, can you describe a little bit more about what gives you the greatest sense of satisfaction as you do reflect on your career overall? Have there been just things that you're especially proud of, kind of looking back?
Yeah, I mean, it probably sounds trite, but it is the people. It's the team. I mean, at the Alliance, we are so fortunate. We, have wonderful programs and events. We work hard on issues that, really matter to the business community, and we get lots of great feedback from our members on that. But it's the work together along the way. I think back on our annual meeting a few years ago. It was a big night, 100th anniversary night. That whole night is a blur to me.
It was a wonderful event.
Well, you were there. So, I look at the pictures and I go, wow. And folks have said to me, well, that was exactly like an Apple conference. To me, as I said, it just was a whirlwind. But I remember so much of the process along the way. I mean, a year in advance, the team started working on it, brainstorming ideas, checking out venues, checking out menus, finding speakers. And I remember all of those details along the way. And when you think about that kind of a process, that's just an example. It's really magical when a team comes together to work on something and together to accomplish something. So, I mean, that's, I would say that is what I will always, think of when I think of my time here at the Alliance.
Oh, that is wonderful. That is wonderful. So, well, today's audience, I know, is comprised of women business leaders from various industries and all over our region. I guess, are there any other additional words of wisdom that you would like to share?
Well, a few, if I may. Number one, and I joked with my team about this, but I actually mean it, sit in the front row. So when you're going to a program, don't put yourself in the back. I learned this at a chamber conference a number of years ago. The power seats are in the front row. And I think it shows that you're fearless, that you don't mind engaging with the speaker. And it also helps you pay attention to what's going on in front of you. So that's a small and easy tip. Overall, I mean, my experience has been that, it's important to put in the work. It's important to strive for excellence. Excellence does not necessarily mean perfection, but you really need to go after a high standard. You can put an excellent meal on the table, but your kitchen can look like a tornado hit it. So, I think it's important if you do the work, your efforts will get noticed. I would also say that, again, and this has been very important for me, and this is why I love my job at the Alliance, always keep learning. Always find, it's easy at the Alliance because we have so many great businesses that we work with, so many business leaders that are engaged, so many wonderful speakers that we bring into our program. So it's easy to learn, but wherever you are in your career, make sure you're still learning and enjoying it. If you're not, really do some soul searching, because I think that's an indication that it might not be the right fit. And then I think my last point will be the one I made before. It is now more important than ever for the business community to get engaged in public policy making and the political process. And you can do that many different ways. You can do that at the local, state, and federal levels. You can get involved in your school with your school board. You can talk to your state legislator about an issue that matters to you. You can contact your member of Congress. Or we can make it really easy for you at the Business Alliance. You can join one of our public policy committees, and that's a great way to engage. So again, it's really important now for the business community to have input into the political process. And I think Waukesha County is really poised for a very bright future.
That's great, and I would agree. So, I know that we've covered a lot here. We've had, actually, I think we have one additional question from the audience that we can address here. So, can you recall a time when you were faced with something that really stumped you? And how would you work through those really tough situations?
Well, that question really stumps me. I think if something really stumps me, I rely on the people around you, rely on your team. I mean, I love to get input from every member of the Business Alliance team, and together, we can work through any problem and come up with a solution. That would be my approach.
Oh, that is great. That is great. And, as we talked earlier too, I think just that, even acknowledging maybe what the question is and coming to some consensus, kind of on that path forward to make sure that everyone is on the same page. So, again, I thank you for spending the time. I think we've talked about so many issues that are important to our business community and to the women that are taking the time, and men that are taking time out of their day for this event. So I guess with that, I do want to give special thanks to Suzanne for being our guest today, and to you, our audience, for taking the time to join us. Ixonia Bank is thrilled to have hosted this webinar today, and the slide presentation and recording of this webinar will be sent to you via email. You will also be receiving a survey. Please let us know what you thought of today's webinar, as well as topics and speakers that might be of interest for future events. So with that, we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.